put together. I worked on a documentary for about a year, and it came to fruition finally a few months ago. But I'm using it kind of as a platform for associations that are trying to create awareness for stroke. So maybe I'll start with that, and then I wanted to go really briefly into the content for the TED Talk, which I've shared with a few of you. I don't think Dewey and Jeannie I did as well. But anyway, all that in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so, because I have a hard stop at 1. So maybe we'll start with that. If you guys think that that's okay, I'll start with the video. All right.
Yes, please start.
And the video is 20 minutes, so I'm not going to run the whole video. I am going to just advance it where I can, so you can get a flavor for the content. And let me preface this. So I was going through a real hard time in the past 5 years. I'll say that I've had a real hard time with all kinds of events that have happened in my life. And in 2015, my brother had a stroke, which he survived. He was 52, and it was a non-bleeding stroke, and he survived. I wasn't there when the event happened. He lives in Maryland. So then in 2018, my sister, who I was traveling a lot at the time for work, and I used to go to a lot of conferences, covering conferences, and just traveling like crazy across the state of Florida for work. She would help me with my kids. So she was always in the house helping me as my right hand, and I relied on her a lot. She ended up having a stroke in 2018 out of the blue. She was one of these people that never got sick, never complained about anything. And then we ended up taking her to the hospital, and in the hospital, she had a massive hemorrhagic stroke. And she lasted about 30 days or so. And unfortunately, we lost her very tragically. It was just a big hit for our family. After we were grieving and going through all that, and getting through the blow, when something like that unexpected happens, you just, it takes a lot to get through it. And, you're healing. And then right as we were healing, almost a year to the date, my mom out of the blue had a stroke in the house. I was coming home from work, and right there in front of me, she was having a stroke. But by then I knew what a stroke looked like. So I called 911 and activated the code real fast, and they came. In 5 minutes, they were ready in the hospital, and they took her in. And fortunately at 84, they saved her. And I dealt with the aftermath, for caring for her at home. She had Alzheimer's as well, but the stroke was the harder convoluter of the whole thing. Unfortunately, in December, we lost her to a massive hemorrhagic stroke. And the common denominator for all 3 of them, coming to terms and making sense of all this stuff and all this horrific stuff happening, and healing from one wound and then falling into another, event and tragedy. It was just like, it's a lot. So I said, what's the common denominator here? The common denominator was smoking for all 3. They were smokers. They were addicted to nicotine. My brother started in his teens. My sister started in her teens. And my mom started in her 20s when smoking was sexy. Smoking was the in thing to do. And, she was addicted, but she quit 25 years ago, she had quit. So that erases a lot of the damage that happens with the smoking, meaning your risk for cardiovascular events decreases. But no matter what, smoking always comes back to collect. My brother also had quit. But my motto is smoking always comes back to collect. So anyway, that has led to the theme for my TED Talk, which is actually smoking is no longer combustible cigarettes. Smoking is now vaping. And we are in the midst of a big epidemic for vaping. So let me share my let me start the video and then I'll move it along. I hope it works. What?
Okay, pause it for a second, Veronica.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, when you hit share
Oh,
in the bottom left-hand corner, it'll say for audio. So click unshare.
unshare. Stop the
Or
share.
stop share.
Yeah.
Okay, click share again.
Share again. Where's the share screen? Okay.
All right,
Uh-huh.
do you see your video there?
Yeah.
Okay, before you hit that, there's two little boxes in the left-hand corner, left bottom hand corner. One says for audio. Two little tiny boxes,
In the left-hand corner.
left bottom corner should say for audio.
Oh, share sound is what I see.
Yes, yes,
Okay. And then there's optimize for video clip.
yes. Click
Hit that
those
as
two.
well. Okay.
And then
All
now
right.
hit
Share.
that, now hit share and then go for it. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not doing anything. Okay, let's see here. Okay. All right, let's play it again then. Thanks for.
Yes.
What's the hardest thing for you now,
Perfect.
as far as talking goes?
Talking.
Just talking.
Yes.
My mom used to send me to buy a pack of cigarettes every day for her. I knew at that age, probably from the time that I was 7, that it was something that I didn't want to do, because she reached out for the box of cigarettes before she even opened her eyes in the morning. She always shared that it made her feel relaxed and happier. I never picked up smoking. I had no desire. I had no interest. I despised seeing my mom smoke so much. Pam actually, she was older than I was. She smoked at a very early age. She started in her teens as well. And then, yeah, she never stopped. So, stroke came into my life in 2018. Coincidentally, I was working in stroke. I was out working, which I covered the whole state of Florida. My sister, Pam, my right hand, who was always at home, just didn't feel well one day, and was very unusual because she was always healthy, or so I thought. And one day she had a fever, and the fever didn't
I kind of move it along here
almost exactly to the date.
because I gave you all the stories, so I'm going to kind of move it along.
It's vaping. It's being talked about everywhere. Is it worse than smoking cigarettes?
Is this better than, than cigarettes? To a certain extent, yes, but I can't endorse it as yet.
Your brain grows in some places and prunes in others. And if you introduce a chemical that changes that brain develop, you don't get to have that back.
I don't mess with that stuff. It's not healthy. And I could end up sitting on the bench just because I want to puff on some cotton candy flavored stick.
There's smaller organizations, foundations that are creating awareness.
Are you like some of the kids we heard earlier? You just know you're addicted. The first thing you have to do is, quote, rip your jewel as soon as you wake up.
If you vape, nicotine cravings could take control of you. Are you possessed by nicotine?
Within the circles of teen to teen and creating awareness of the damage of what this is going to cause and what it's causing.
You don't know what vaping is going to do to you down the road. I mean, you're basically a lab rat to these tobacco companies.
Vaping, unfortunately, it takes a lot less time for the damage to occur. We need to be better informed. And so that's my purpose with all this.
Let me know when you're recording, Dante.
Oh, we got
This is
action.
Dante, who's
Can you
from
guys hear
Alter
me?
Call.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
He's doing an interview. I'd gotten sick. I had a gallbladder problem. I wasn't able to work, and I lost a lot of traction, and so it stressed me out.
I was suffering from a pretty severe eating disorder.
And now it just opened up a new Pandora's box. So, so that's why we're talking.
A lot of girls were online talking about how they would use cigarettes or juuling or, other substances to try and also curb their appetites. Juuling, vaping, it's not as bad as smoking cigarettes. I should be fine with this, I took one hit and suddenly I started needing more and more and more. And
it does kind of give you a sense of like, I'm here now, and it kind of brings you back into the now, which obviously is fake. It's not real.
The anxiety and the, depression and all the terrible things that came with, being heavily addicted to a substance that has an exceedingly high amount of nicotine, it began to take over my life.
There's issues that I have that cause me to trigger me to want to smoke, that I'm gonna need some type of device, if you will, to get off of the devices.
Just going out enough or seeing enough people doing it, I would take a couple of their vapes and I would ask them to hit it a couple times, and I'd be like, oh wow, that's a great flavor.
It's genius marketing. When you look at the packaging, when they mask it with the flavors.
Flavors, that's how they do it. Because it's flavored, they think it's safe because they're not lighting a cigarette. Well, the machine heats up the gases and it goes in the mouth. How do you cook a roast? It's with hot air. You put it in the oven, it's got hot air. So you're cooking the inside of your lungs. Vaping or any cigarette, if you're gonna smoke, use a hookah because it goes through water and it cools the temperature of the smoke. That's what hookahs are really used for.
But there's just so many people out here doing it that it's almost like, hey, yo, can I rip your vape? Hey, can I try that flavor? Hey, like, oh, mine just ran out. You know what I mean?
Did you ever think about the possibility of lung disease or cancer or stroke, any of those?
I know that there's still probably, again, smoking always, comes to collect. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to make sure that, doing as much as I can to repay in advance so that I don't have to later on down the road.
So just tell us about you and
after. And I've smoked for many, many, many years. And if I had a chance to go back knowing what I know.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
If that's the case, then I feel like I'm 125. Because that's all I do is sit here. I sit in my wheelchair, sitting here at my desk, I watch TV and I nap all day long. That's it. That's all I can do. I don't feel like a woman anymore. I don't feel like a human anymore. It's bad. It's bad.
I've seen thousands of patients over the last 3 decades with strokes. The good news, however, is that tobacco cessation can modify the course and decrease your future risk of having a stroke. And therefore, it is important not to give up and say, well, I smoked and therefore I am at risk forever. That is not true. If you stop tobacco use, you will decrease your risk of a future stroke. So it's very important to make that point. So e-cigarettes or electronic cigarettes, We don't have enough data in stroke to make a final determination. However, we know that young people that use e-cigarettes have risks for developing lung disease, inflammatory lung disease. In addition, young individuals that vape may also use cigarettes. It may be a gateway to using more cigarettes and even other drugs that can be vaped, such as marijuana. And that is certainly not healthy.
The scientist in me says,
I think I'm going to stop
this
it there, unless you guys want me to continue, but I'll stop it there. There's the rest of the video goes into an interview that I did with my son, because that's what led me into focusing on vaping, is when my son accidentally asked me to go into his backpack to search for a calculator, and I found a vaping device in there. And this was after we had gone through all the events that I shared with you. And then I started realizing that throughout the house, I was finding all kinds of paraphernalia, all kinds of vaping devices. So he must have been using it throughout the time that, we were going through the issues with perhaps with my sister and my mom. I don't know how long. And yeah, I realized that he had been vaping and was addicted to it. And then even worse is that, triggered curiosity with trying to see if my other kids were. And so I went into my other son's backpack, who was at the time 13. And sure enough, he was vaping as well. I found devices in his backpack. So it became something that I had to deal with and address. And my youngest son hasn't been vaping, and my oldest son, he had quit, but then unfortunately, because nicotine is an addiction and these vaping devices have so much of a concentrated amount of nicotine in them, much higher than what a cigarette would hold, the addiction becomes even much more pronounced much sooner. There's even the Juul, which is the most commercialized and known of the vaping devices. One pod is the equivalent of 40 cigarettes. So if you vape enough during the day, you can just imagine what it is that you're doing with the nicotine alone. If you think about what a vaping device, how it's put together, which is very genius, that has a coiling device to heat the contents, not just the nicotine, but the other contents that then get aerolized. And the other contents are vitamin E acetate, which I can assure you is not intended to go into your lungs, and propylene glycol, which is a chemical that's used, it has benzene or traces of benzene, and it's used as antifreeze. I can assure you that is not intended to go into your lungs. And you're heating that, aerosolizing it, so it's going into your become smaller particles that go way quicker into your lung, and then go into your vasculature, so your entire circulatory system, your brain, and different organs of the body. All this is what a vape is doing and how it works, which is very smart because it goes in very smooth. You don't feel it. If you were to ingest the same amount of nicotine that these devices contain with a regular cigarette, you would be vomiting and sick all day long. But the way that this is aerosolized, you don't feel that impact with the vapes as you would with the cigarette. The other real bad thing about the vapes is that they also have traces of nickel. There's metals in there, and so there's nickel, there's cadmium, there's zinc, there's even traces of cyanide they have found in some of the vaping devices out there. So because none of this is regulated, none of this is The FDA has only taken a look so far at Juul, and the evidence is there with what I'm sharing you of all the contents of what these vapes contain and how they're designed. The FDA only has put their hold on Juul, which was actually banned last year, but then it was overridden because there's political interest with the Juul and the billions of dollars that they make. Part of that goes to funding political campaigns. So we live in an era where this kind of activity overrides the best interest of the public. So unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with just one of the devices that's out there. There's a whole plethora of vapes in different forms, shapes, manufacturers. If you go into one of these shops, which are strategically placed by the owners close to schools, you will see that you can buy just anything you want. And these vapes are made by different manufacturers from around the world. So there is absolutely no surveillance as to what goes into these products or these devices. There's no regulation. And the worst part is that they're really marketed towards youth and teens. So there's different evils there, and I'll name three. One is the fact that they are strategically opening up these shops very close to schools. So geographically, and there's data from the American Heart Association looking at this, is that there's within a radius, there's about 3 on average around the perimeter of a public school. The second thing is that there really isn't much regulation as to if a kid goes in and they want to buy, nobody's scrutinizing. There is no law right now scrutinizing who is selling what to who. Legally, you're not supposed to sell to kids or youth, just like cigarettes were. So there's no scrutinizing that. The police doesn't intervene because there's no legislation on that. And thirdly, the brains of youth are under development. So I think that is the worst part of the whole thing, is that if you think a teenager's brain at this age is still going through a lot of growth and a lot of development, particularly with the prefrontal cortex, which is what regulates your reward system, your impulse control, all that stuff is regulated by the prefrontal cortex. That is not developed until about the mid-20s. So you're going through a period of important growth and development of your brain, and you are playing around with your reward system to a huge extent, where you are rewarding your brain in the wrong way. And so the whole host of chemicals that go into play are overregulated, upregulated, and unfortunately creating a susceptibility to becoming an addict way sooner than you should, and probably something that you will carry around for the rest of your life. So a lot of things that are, very counterproductive to our youth, that really is under wraps right now, and unfortunately is going to take a toll in our youth. I'll go back to the saying, smoking in any way, shape, or form comes back to collect. So with my family members, it was, stroke. There is some evidence that there is a correlation between vaping and stroke. Actually, the American Heart Association did a study showing that the incidence of stroke can happen a decade sooner than what has happened historically with cigarettes. But there's more data and more studies that need to be conducted. But regardless, there's been a huge incidence of what's called popcorn lung because of the vitamin acetate going in there, propylene glycol, all of the substances that are not designed or intended to be inhaled, and particularly in an aerolized form, into the lung, which makes it even more smaller particles, goes way straight into the tissues. And the popcorn lung has been a big thing, but lung injury, as to a greater extent, and then organs, different organs, and the heart as well. A myocardial infarction. There have been cases of MI so far. So there's just a whole host of possibilities of what can happen here. And we're at the tip of the iceberg with this whole thing, because this has been a phenomenon. Juul has been marketed since 2016. So these kids have been exposed to this for 6 years now. And with all of the other brands that are out there, unregulated, it's just, there's even more substances in those vapes than we know as well. But
Hey, Veronica,
yes,
could I for the sake of time, we got 10 minutes, so I wanted to kind of throw some stuff out for questions. So
yes, I was too. I was going to stop right there. So my ending was really that.
No, you're great. You're great, and I want you guys to know Veronica is a pharmacist. She understands what she's talking about. She knows what she's talking about. On top of it, she spent her own money making that documentary. And it's really good. And I hope, Veronica, you will post the link to that if you can in our group. I want to make a connection too. So I used tobacco most of my life. I started 10 years old smoking cigarettes. I was at one point 3 packs a day. And then I thought, well, if I start smoking cigars, I could cut that down. So I went to cigars. And then I went to quit the smoke inhalation. I went to the vaping. And so the question, so when I tie it into what we talked about last week with the ADHD type of thing, there's a reason why nicotine is being used. I mean, there's a reward there. So, is there a tie with what's going on with people? And having had addiction problems in my life, have you thought about maybe perhaps what's the underlying reason why people are turning to these substances? And if we could address that, maybe we could prevent or find a better way for people to cope. Right? Because what's nicotine rewarding? Are you
well,
do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah. So good point. So there was a real big surge in the use of these devices during COVID. So people are looking for ways to deal with their stress. We are in a time of high stress. I think everybody has tremendous anxiety. Sleep disorders are huge, and depression is huge, right? So people are looking for outlets for all of these things. And that is exactly what these companies have grabbed on. They've latched on to our current environment with all of these things that are creating and augmenting all these things that were there probably before, right? And so these have been, people went traditionally to cigarettes. Cigarette use has gone down significantly. And these devices have gone up. So people are looking for outlets. And what I found, even with what the girl that I interviewed is actually, she's in college. She's very smart. And she found an outlet. And what she shared in the video was that she had an eating disorder, and she had tremendous anxiety, stress, anxiety, and depression as well. And she found comfort in the vape. It made her feel good. It gave her this perception of calm, and it filled that void that she needed. But what she found was that she was getting even more stressed, much more anxiety, and all she was thinking about, when am I going to get my next puff? That's what she could think about all day long. And she realized this vape is not only, I'm completely addicted, but now I have even worse stress, more anxiety, and I'm more depressed because my lows are lower than they were before, just like an addiction, exactly the same pattern. And so this is part of the problem right now. And some people are now, in what's being seen in adults that are vaping, is that they're going to the vape and they're smoking. So because the nicotine addiction is so big, it seems like you can't even get enough with your vapes. So they're going back to their smoking habits and vaping. So this perception that's been created, that these vapes are safe, that they will get you off smoking, and that, you know, you can be on this stuff forever, and it's better and healthier than smoking, is completely false. And unfortunately, there are no addiction programs for teenagers right now. This is what they need. They need addiction program. They need to get off the devices through the same things that have been done with traditional cigarettes. You have to either use the patches or the gum or both to get off of the devices. And there's no programs that are catered to kids, youth. If you look at the labeling, I think there's one. I went to Walgreens to see what the boxes said, and the lady told me they're all dusty. Nobody buys these things anyway. There's, you know, full of cigarettes there. I took the packet, true enough, full of dust. Nobody's using the patches or anything like that. And nobody, I said, is anybody buying them, or any parents buying them for you? She said, no, absolutely not. So yeah, again, you know, it's a long-winded answer to your question, but it is an addiction. You have to find a way to get off this addiction now through what's out there. So the patches, I think the labeling is, some of them are strictly 18 and up. I think there's one that's for younger population. I'm not sure what the cutoff age is. But yeah, a whole market now is open for teenagers, anything 13 through 19 and younger.
Can you tell us a little bit about when your TED Talk will be, and you know, how we'll be able to watch it or be involved and support you?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. So it's January 28th, and it will be in small town in Florida, Eustis, Florida, but it's any TEDx talk gets put in the main platform of the TED stages, which are the national, all this is under the umbrella of the TED Talks. You know, so it'll be available, it'll be put on the TED website, but I'll make sure that, you know, I share this with you guys. And the idea of a TEDx talk is an idea worth sharing. It's not a tutorial. It's not a class on, you know, it's more of a entertaining, lively talk as to why this is important to share. And I think it is. I think that really most people, and I encourage you, I invite you all to look around you. Since I got more involved with this, I see so many people. I am so much more aware of people that are vaping around me. When I'm driving my car, I'm at a light, I look left and right. I see so many people vaping. You'll be amazed around you how many people are actually vaping. It's huge. The prevalence is huge. So there's just a high statistic of the use of these products. I think at, you know, alarming rates. And the number of stores around you as well. Be open to seeing and realizing how many of these small shops are open around your vicinity and neighborhood, and around schools as well.
I also want to invite you back to speak again about the process of being able to give a TED talk. Because I know that you've kind of explained to me a little bit what you have to go through. And I think different entrepreneurs with different issues and different missions, like I know Dewey, is an entrepreneur from Indonesia. And she's been through a lot of stuff, and she's immigrated, and now is entrepreneuring here. So there's a message, for women, and minority women, and how that, and she could give a talk. Jeannie's into essential oils, and how those can, all these types of gifts that wherever we're coming from in our journey, that we could spread our message.
Sure. So we're a minute over time, but I'll give you the high level. So the TEDx talks are independently owned. So there's TED, the national stage, to which you have to be invited to. So you have, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, that type of people have presented at that stage. You've got to be invited. The TEDx are independently owned, so they are franchises. They don't make any money. Whoever is the sponsor or the person that's licensed to be the TEDx person is granted that license, and you there's a formal process for the application. So the one that I applied to was the TED, the Eustis stage, Eustis, Florida. It's near Orlando, and they were very methodical in the process of applying and acceptance. So they give everybody the the notes to passing the test. So they tell you, and this is rare, you don't get it with every TEDx stage. Some of them, they all have guidance somewhat of what they want, and they'll tell you the deadlines, but some of them don't tell you any more than that. This one actually told you, what they expect and what not to do. And so if you follow those guidelines, which happened for me, then you'll get in. And they're very elitist. This stage is known to be very elitist, very picky. They're very nitpicky. So I was very happy, very, very happy to land it on my first try. I did get some coaching on this, and I know that some of the people that have done this or have been trying to get stages, it takes a long time. It's very difficult to land a stage because there's so many people wanting to do it. And one is because it elevates your message to a very broad audience. You go beyond national, you go global. And it's it's an opportunity to get yourself out there. And so it does a lot for you. So there's a lot of applicants. So we're 135 for this stage, and they picked 14 of us. So I was just like, so beyond happy. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, the process. And now once you get picked, there's a period of, this is where the work comes in. You have to do drafts. They have specific criteria. Right now, it's my the actual talk that I'm submitting that has to get approved, not approved, but they want you to know, they want to have the draft of what you're gonna, in written form, what you're gonna present. And then you present to them. We're gonna present to each other for the next few weeks before we have the talk, not next few months, I would say. And then, so there's a process, it's a process, but that's very good. There's some stages that I've heard that don't do this. So that's very good. So, and they have curators, they have coaches. Curators are the higher level up. They've already done their talks. And so they were kind of above the coaches to guide you on what to do and how to do it. So I'll stop there because we're at 105, but.
Yeah. And if anyone has any questions here, please feel free. I don't mind hanging out a little longer, if Veronica's cool with that.
But I'll say, sure, I don't know, Jeannie and I spoke about this. She actually gave me a few, she gave me a lot of positive feedback when we talked, and there was a big guru on addiction that she suggested that I reach out to. And I did. I haven't heard back from him, but that's what we're dealing with here is really an addiction. But for you, if Dewey or Jeannie, if there's a lot of topics that are really, wow, interesting topics that I've seen people that want to present on, and it's a garden variety. It's everything you can imagine. I mean, some of them are like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if this was merited being a TED Talk, but okay, somebody picked it. But there's all different types of topics. You name it, creative topics of different kinds. And yeah, you just have to appeal to the stage that you're applying to. So
I think what you are doing is very good. I just feel like there are many good information. Unfortunately, it is not widely shared, widely spread. Like I know Alex for a long time. He has very inspiring journey. So maybe maybe in the future, like I can share about how to share your message to the world using social media. So you will it's your positivity will impact larger audience, because I know there are so many people get addicted to vaping. Personally, I never smoke. My husband, we don't smoke. But I know in Indonesia, there's so many people addicted. My grandpa, my uncle, like my friend, they all smoking. It's very bad. Like if you can share it and with the right distribution, your message, it's like getting to more people, the right audience.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yes.
Speaking of that, Dewey,
I just forgot. My uncle just got stroke because he is like smoking all the time. He just got
He
stroke.
did. Wow. Yeah.
The first one, and then he called me and called my husband because my husband is PA. We are running a clinic here, so we help him like, yeah, but he's not recovery 100% yet. Like still like this.
Yeah. It's very life changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dewey, would you be
I want to
open
jump
to?
in real quick. Is that
All
okay?
right, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Something happened.
No, we can hear you. We can hear you.
We hear you.
Oh,
Your video froze up though.
I got to get off real soon. I got to run to the bank before they close.
All right. Hey, Dewey, could you be speaker next week?
Let me see. I plan to go to Chicago next week to meet my friend from he is coming from France, so we will have a business meeting in Chicago. Hopefully, I will be back very late on Friday, but there might be a chance I will sleep a night in Chicago. But if I'm back, I would love to share some.
Because Dewey gets a lot of hits on her posts on social. She's
okay,
like,
so maybe I got to pair up with you, Dewey, then.
I maybe have more than 200,000 followers. So when I share something, many people hear my message. So we give positive impact to many more people online,
Yeah.
So I think you give very good message. Many people addicted, like my family too, Veronica. So
yeah,
that will help a lot of people, your message.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I hope we can get you soon, Dewey, because I know how talented you are.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Hey,
You are very supportive. Thank you, Jenny, Joe.
Bye.
Thank you, Veronica, for the presentation.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice to you. Bye-bye.
I just want to say bye. I want to thank you. I didn't know a lot of what you said, and we've been studying health, me and my daughter, and I didn't know a lot of that. So I just want to really appreciate, even after the talk that we had, a couple weeks ago. So thank you. And I just want to say goodbye. I'm out of here in an hour, and really enjoyed listening. I really appreciated the conversation, and I hope I will be suspending my Facebook, but if you guys could contact me on WhatsApp, and I think if you have a Telegram,
Yes.
I dropped my email I dropped my my phone number into the messages. So if somebody wants to add me that would be awesome.
I'll add
Because I
you.
can listen.
Okay.
You can listen
All right.
through Zoom
Okay.
on that. Okay. All right, you guys.
Safe travels,
Bye.
Jeannie.
Love you all.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye, Alex. Bye, Joe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Safe travels, Jeannie. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Jeannie, love you.
Bye-bye.
Travel safe.
Love you too, Alex. Thanks.
Fuck you, asshole.
What?
Alex?
Hold on, Joe. I gotta stop the recording. Oh gosh.
Is everybody